as all earthly states are changeable, the same sword that Constantine drew against heretics, Julian turned against the Orthodox. Unquote. Do you see the danger in giving the government too much power to do what you believe is good, but then they turn around and they use that power to do something evil? So if you, rather than give the government power at all, just keep the government out of people's civil and personal choices, you know. The Roman Catholic Church from its beginning went to bed with the secular emperor Constantine, and then he becomes the first anointed pope over that church. But he's also a secular emperor as well, and he distorts and uses the church as a tool to stifle the freedom of the dissenters. And that's what happened to the Roman Catholic Church. And now, today, in modern times, the Pope, the head of the modern Roman Catholic Church, has openly called for world government, which clearly contradicts true New Testament Christianity. This has also happened to Islamic countries, because Muhammad, the founder of Islam, also made himself the military and political leader, and he used his political power to force people through law to live a lifestyle that conformed to the Quran, Islam's so-called holy book. And Islam has desired world government, and it desires world government in which to use it to enforce Sharia law on the entire world. That is indeed tyranny, as is the communism of China. But don't you see that it all began with the harmless idea that the government, run by flawed heathen men and women in religion, could work together for a better society? It always ends up in tyranny and a loss of our God-given and inborn freedom to peaceably dissent and disagree. How do I know our freedom to choose is God-given? Well, God didn't force Adam and Eve to eat of the forbidden tree, right? Did God force them not to eat of the forbidden tree? No. Did he force them to eat of the forbidden tree? No. He gave them a choice. Even though Adam and Eve obviously made the wrong decision, God still gave them that freedom to decide for themselves. Didn't God give us the power to choose to sin or not? Many pastors may not want to admit that, but yes, God gave every human the power to choose to sin or not to sin, to obey his word or not to obey his word. So if God didn't use force, why then should Christians come together and get a majority vote and use the law to force other people to behave the way Christians think they should behave? Because that's exactly what happened in California and other states, where the Christians got a majority vote, and they tried to, and they did, and they passed some law that, you know, used the government as the referee to define marriage according to the biblical and Christian definition. But the Christians had no right doing that, because government has no business taking someone's right to marry whoever they want to marry in the civil arena away. That's just not the business of Christians. When Jesus was here, did he force people to be his disciples? Or did he give them a choice to follow him or not? He gave them a choice. The Son of God gives everyone a choice to accept him as their Savior or not. Though he may disagree with some people's rejection of him, nonetheless, he does not use the force of law to make them accept him. He rather leaves the choice and the consequences up to them, and he leaves them be. That's why only the grace and liberty offered through true New Testament Christianity could inspire our founding fathers to establish a nation and a constitution based on personal liberty. You know, beloved, to tell you the truth, and if we want to be honest, Islam, the religions of Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Catholicism, the Roman Catholic Church, all of these which have the religion and state combined, and you say, well, no, the Catholic Church doesn't have the religion and state combined. Yes, they do. The Vatican is its own independent state, and it's also the head of the religion called Catholicism, and it has its own chair as a member of the United Nations, which is a pro pro-world government body, a pro-world communist body, I might add. And also the religion of communism, which has the view that the state is God. These religions could never give us a nation like the one our founding fathers established. Never. Christianity, the principles of true New Testament Christianity, as it's correctly interpreted, that undergirded the foundation of this great country. But unfortunately, we are getting away from that as Bible-believing Christians and as conservatives. Just because Christianity the principles of Christianity may have undergirded the foundation of this country does not give Christians the right to impose Christian laws using the force of government. The Declaration of Independence says, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." In other words, rights that you cannot put a lien on, rights that you cannot take away. It goes on to say that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, many state constitutions, as I'm told, say life, liberty, and property, but nonetheless, it's all relevant. It's all the same. That these are the rights that God gave us from our birth, and they cannot be taken away by any law, no matter who is coming up with that law, whether atheist or Christian. Now, I will interject here that this is why abortion is immoral and unconstitutional. The moment of conception is the moment of creation, and that all men that are created equal include the unborn child, as they are created from conception, and they have unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as well. The right of privacy, as many people try to raise that objection, wait a minute, the right of privacy, the women have a right to privacy and the right to their own bodies. Well, the right of privacy cannot trump the right to life. One basic human right cannot be used to trump another, no matter what any Supreme Court justice says. They are not doctors or scientists. Legally, biologically, and spiritually, a baby has unalienable rights from the moment they are created, and that is at the moment of conception. I'm sensitive to the fact that the conditions and the circumstances surrounding an abortion may be difficult, especially in the case of rape. But why punish the child for the sins of the father? Let the child live and enjoy its constitutional and God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness like you do and I do. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says, quote, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." To the Christians listening out there, you have to remember that God told us in 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 13 through 14, and elsewhere in the Bible, to obey the laws of the land as long as they didn't conflict with His Word. The U.S. Constitution is the law of the land. It is the law of this land. And I've read it, and it does not conflict with the Word of God. Therefore, to obey the Constitution as it is now written is also being obedient to the Lord. So Bible believers are to obey the Constitution, and the Constitution gives us no authority to tell other people what they ought to put in their bodies, what they ought to drink, what they ought to eat. The Constitution gives us no authority to support an ungodly government-run education system or a Department of Education, and the Constitution gives us no authority to petition the government to get involved in defining marriage in favor of one group's definition over against another group's definition. Again, civil and religious rights champion and Baptist preacher John Leland said, quote, "Government has no more to do with the religious opinions of men than it has with the principles of mathematics," unquote. As long as a person doesn't deny another person's God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as outlined in the Declaration of Independence, and as long as a person doesn't do harm to another person's property, the government should stay out of our affairs. Live and let live. And that is the constitutional and libertarian position that Baptist preacher John Leland held, that most, if not all, of our founding fathers held to, and I hold as well. Quote, again, quoting from the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or the right of the people peaceably to assemble. Normally, if you think about it, normally a wedding ceremony is an expression of someone's religious values, and a wedding is also an event where people peaceably assemble. And for Christians to empower the federal government by majority vote to define marriage according to the Jewish Christian definition of marriage violates the First Amendment, because it is enforcing one's faith's definition over against another faith's definition of marriage. One man and one woman is not the Mormon definition of marriage, nor is it the Islamic definition or Buddhist or Hindu definition. This would be showing favoritism. That's why the Constitution prohibits the government from getting involved with defining marriage. Sadly, Christians don't know this or don't believe this. But if Christians could get the government to define marriage the way they want it defined, what is to stop Muslims or Mormons or atheists or homosexuals from one day getting by majority vote the government to define it the way they want? Don't you see where this would lead? That's why if we believe in liberty, we must obey the Constitution and let the government stay out of defining marriage this way or that way. I said earlier that I hold to the constitutionalist / libertarian position as far as my political views go. I also believe, though, even though God has not specifically said this in the Bible, and I know some of you may get mad at what I'm about to say or disagree strongly, but from my understanding of the Bible and the fact that God has not created us to be robots, I believe God is a libertarian, because although he does not endorse or condone sin, he certainly has given mankind the liberty to choose to sin or not to sin. He doesn't endorse people's choice to reject salvation through his son Jesus and to go to hell to pay for their sins, because he certainly wants people to acknowledge that that's why he sent his son Jesus to take their place, so that they wouldn't have to go to hell and pay for their sins. But God certainly gives them the choice to make, doesn't he? I hear so many people when I'm, talking to people about salvation and witnessing to them, I hear so many people think that God makes a decision for them. I say, no. He didn't make you a robot. God says you make the decision. And so defending one's freedom to sin or to take a position opposite yours does not mean you condone that sin. It only means you endorse their freedom to make their own choices. Sad to say, many Christians who are so consumed with trying to use the government and laws to control people's lifestyle behavior look like the very tyranny they claim to denounce. A Supreme Court justice in the case America Communicators Association v. Dudes 339 U.S. 382 442 said in May 1950, quote, "It is not the function of our government to keep the citizen from falling into error. It is the function of the citizen to keep the government from falling into error," unquote. Now that is so clear right there, and I couldn't have said it better myself. It is not, Christians have to understand that it is not a constitutional right to empower the government to do something that is not its function. It is not the government's job to keep homosexuals from making the decisions you think they shouldn't make in their life. It is not, if they want to marry someone of the same gender, you may not agree with it. I certainly don't agree with it, but it is not our right, it is not the function of our government to keep homosexual citizens or heterosexual citizens from falling into error, to making choices that we believe they're wrong. It's not the government's job to keep people from making the wrong decisions.